Okay, so we have the 6 knowledge areas. If you talk about the BABOK structure, BABOK has 6 knowledge areas. The first one is business analysis, planning and monitoring, then elicitation and collaboration, then requirements lifecycle management, then strategy analysis, then requirements analysis and design definition, and solution evaluation. Now these are the 6 knowledge areas which the BABOK is proposing. Okay, and it says that any business analysis tasks that happens through these 6 knowledge areas only. Okay, next, the base of this knowledge area, each knowledge area is a collection of tasks. So let us try to understand how a task will look like. Okay, task is a unit of work. It can be a discrete piece of work or unit of work, formally or informally, that is performed by a business analyst. And a task can be a business analysis work, or it need not be a business analysis work. And a task, the structure of task is, will have a purpose, will have a description, and we have set of inputs, we have set up outputs, and we have some elements. Elements can be the process. Okay, and we will do this particular task using some techniques, some guidelines and tools can be used, and we have the stakeholders involved here. So a task, when we are discussing about any task, a task will have this structure like purpose, description, inputs, elements, outputs, stakeholders, and guidelines and techniques. So when we discuss about any task, this will be the case. And collection of tasks, we call it as a knowledge area. Collection of tasks, we call it as a knowledge area. Fine. And when we discuss about techniques, techniques will have a purpose, description, elements, and usage considerations. Okay, and then when we discuss about underlying competencies, it will have a purpose, definition, and effective measures. And then we have 5 perspectives. Each perspective, when we are discussing about a perspective, we will be discussing about change scope, business analysis scope, methodologies, approaches and techniques, underlying competencies, and impact on knowledge areas. This is what we are going to discuss on, right? Now, for you, it is very important for us to know the structure of the task. Task has a purpose, description, inputs, outputs, elements, and then we have these guidelines, techniques, and stakeholders. Like that, it is organized. Okay, so I want you to Pinchila, I want you to draw this task diagram, this particular structure with you, so that it becomes easy for you to correlate when we discuss now. Okay, I want you to draw it for yourself. Please draw this task structure. It has a purpose, description. Purpose means what for we are trying to do this, and description means how we are going to do this. Okay, and inputs means like before we start this task, what inputs we are going to take. Outputs means what we are going to deliver as output. Okay, elements means what is the process involved in doing this particular task by taking inputs, and how we are going to make it as output. Like that, it will be described. And guidelines means like under what supervision any special instructions are given for us to do this particular task, or are we using any tools in this particular process that we are going to use it. And techniques, internal elements, or we will be having various techniques to achieve it. So those techniques will be discussed here. And coming to the stakeholders who are involved, or who are involved here are directly or indirectly impacted by this particular task, those people will be having a discussion on them. Got it clear on this? So this is what we are going to make it up. Okay, this is the structure of the task. Did you note down this, Pinchila, this task?
Yeah, just I just note down. Thank you.
Okay, fine. Now let us discuss about we will be discussing about one knowledge area today, that is elicitation and collaboration. We are going to discuss now. We are going to discuss about which knowledge area? Elicitation and collaboration. Now elicitation and collaboration here, what it exactly means is that, okay, so this particular knowledge area has 5 tasks. Okay, this knowledge area has 5 tasks. What are those 5 tasks is, okay, it has this we will be like It has 5 tasks. One is prepare for elicitation. The second task is conduct elicitation. Third task is confirm elicitation results. Fourth task is communicate business analysis information. And fifth task is manage stakeholder collaboration. Okay, so we have 5 tasks in elicitation and collaboration. Elicitation means we are going to gather information or requirements from the stakeholders. For that, what elicitation, how to conduct elicitation, for that we have to prepare and we have to conduct, and once we got that elicitation results, we have to confirm on that elicitation results. And once we got that business analysis information means it is 2 parts. Business analysis information has 2 parts. One is requirements and the other one is information about the process and procedures. That is business analysis information. So both this, how we are going to communicate this business analysis information, and then manage stakeholder collaboration. That means how we are going to collaborate with each stakeholder. Like we have this RACI matrix or like that. So we will be understanding how we are going to collaborate with them. So here, these are the 5 tasks which are involved in elicitation and collaboration. So how many tasks we have? 5 tasks. The first one is we prepare for elicitation and we conduct elicitation, and then we confirm elicitation results, and then we communicate business analysis information, and then we are going to manage stakeholder collaboration. Okay, and each task will have one output. Like prepare for elicitation means we will get an output of elicitation activity plan, and conduct elicitation means we will be getting the elicitation results which are unconfirmed, and confirm elicitation results means here we get the elicitation results which are confirmed. And business analysis information, we will get it from communicate business analysis information, and from manage stakeholder collaboration we get the stakeholder engagement plan. So we will be getting stakeholder engagement here. So we have 5 outputs out of these 5 tasks. We have 5 outputs out of these 5 tasks. Okay, and let us discuss about each of these tasks now. Let us discuss about each of these tasks now. Okay, for that we will go ahead to prepare for elicitation. Okay, what is prepare for elicitation? Now, before we do any elicitation, we need to understand why we are doing this elicitation. What is the purpose of doing this elicitation activity, and what is the scope of our elicitation activity? We need to first understand it. Okay, first we should be very clear why we are doing this, what for we are doing this elicitation. Okay, then based on the scope of the elicitation activity, we have to select that appropriate techniques. Okay, we have to select that appropriate techniques, and we have to plan for appropriate supporting materials and resources as well. Okay, now elicitation technique is preparing for elicitation. I can tell you it is to give you out of the box idea. Let me say you take a lawyer. If he takes up a case and in the court he argues it. Now, before he take up that discussions, before he take up that, after he takes up this case and before he actually presents that case in the court, what he does, what he will do, he will prepare himself concerning that particular case. He will understand who are involved in it, what is that they did there, and what documents are supporting their actions. All this the lawyer will be doing all this stuff, right? Hope you got me. What a lawyer will be doing after he takes up a case and before he argues in a court, before he presents himself in a court, what he will be doing, he will be preparing himself on that case, right? Like who are involved in it, like what actions they did it concerning this particular case, what impact these actions will have on the whatever the case may be, and what documents, what supporting documents we have, how it is that he will do all his analysis there. He prepare himself for the case and then he presents the case. The same thing we have to do it here. The same thing we have to do it here. Okay, please understand from that particular perspective that as a business analyst, before we actually do any elicitation, we have to prepare for the elicitation. We have to prepare for the elicitation. Prepare for the elicitation means we have to identify what all materials we need for us to actual supporting materials we need for us to support this particular thing we have to present, and then what all resources are required and who are involved here, and what techniques we can actually do here, what techniques we can apply here, that we need to understand it. The first we have to, that is the purpose, means we have to first understand these areas what it is. Now let us try to see that, okay, what is the process in doing it. Okay, now before we do any elicitation we need to understand what outcome we should get, what outcome we should get. That means what is the result of doing an elicitation. We should first of all understand that particular part, what we are going to get out of this elicitation, what information we should extract it from the concerning stakeholders. We need to understand that outcome first, and based on it we have to plan our procedure. While planning there were so many elements involved in planning it, so that we are going to discuss about that. So here in this particular process even the logistics are also involved. Logistics means sometimes the client will be in a different location, and there we will be either we will travel to their place, or sometimes they may travel to our place, or we will be going for video conferencing, or we will going for con call, like that. What are the, or we will be confirming through some mails. All this we need to first of all freeze before we start this. We have to prepare all that information and all that material, all that process we have to freeze in, and then take it to the next level. Okay, now let us try to understand, prepare for elicitation, this particular task. What we are going to do here, we will take needs and stakeholder engagement approach as the input. Stakeholder engagement approach means how we are going to talk to the stakeholders, how we are going to communicate with the stakeholders, that is stakeholder engagement approach. So we will have that, basically we'll have that stakeholder plan. So that, and the needs means how we are going to, what is that we are going to achieve here, we will take as inputs, and then we prepare for the elicitation, and the output is what elicitation activity plan will be the output. Elicitation activity plan will be the output. And while you are doing it, here the guidelines and tools is that we will be considering the business analysis approach, and then we have the business objectives, and then we have the existing business analysis information and the potential value. Now existing business analysis information means, let me say you worked on a similar project before, and you know the best practices, what can be done here. Let me say which elicitation technique works here, you know it beforehand. So that is existing business analysis information. So the same thing you can actually use it here as well. Okay, so likewise before you plan for the elicitation, you need to actually understand planning for elicitation means exactly we have to come up with a plan how to do an elicitation. After taking these inputs, we have to plan the output, the outcome, the output of this particular activity of this particular task is an elicitation activity plan. We should get it. For that, what we need to do, let us try to discuss in detail. Okay, here we are going to take the needs and the stakeholder engagement plan. Needs means here we will understand what the actual project is, in that what is the scope of of business analysis, and in that what is the scope of this particular elicitation activities. We need to understand it first. And what for we are using this elicitation, that means elicitation means we are going to interact with the stakeholders and we are going to understand their needs. Okay, and what is the process of understanding their needs, that we need to first of all understand what sort of needs they will be communicating with us, and where there will be gaps, we need to understand it, and then we have to actually start this preparation for the elicitation. You got me, no? Like lessons learned document, possibly you may be knowing about this lessons learned document. Lessons learned document means, suppose if you do a mistake in your previous let me say case or your previous project, those mistakes you will not repeat it in the next project, you will overcome it. You'll know that if you do this mistake next time, you will make some precautions so that you will not repeat that mistakes. So likewise we will be understanding what are the gaps in that, and then we will try to overcome it. Okay, And here the next input what we are going to take up is the stakeholder engagement approach. Stakeholder engagement approach means here we are trying to understand how the stakeholders are going to communicate and they collaborate for them to actually explain their needs and requirements to us. So for that we need to also understand like how do we need to conduct an event for it, or we need to actually come up with a meeting is enough, or one to one is essential, or a group meeting is essential. Like that we will be like we will be planning here. So those already we have planned it before, so that inputs we will be taking as that output we are going to take as inputs here, and we are going to do this activity. Fine. And the next one is here we will be discussing about the elements. Now the first element is we need to understand the scope of the elicitation. That means elicitation scope we need to understand. Okay, so elicitation scope, how we are going to understand is we need to understand the present. We have to, before we could suggest any technique or we have to come up with a process or procedure, we need to understand what is the present scenario. For that we need to consider the business domain and overall corporate culture and environment, and then we have to understand the stakeholder locations, and then we will be understanding the stakeholders who are involved and their group dynamics, and we need to know the expected outputs the illustration activities will feed. Okay, and then the skills of the business analysis practitioners, and then the strategy or the solution approach, and the scope of the future solution, and possible sources of business analysis information that might feed into a specific illustration activity. That means we have to consider all these points. We have to consider all these points. Then based on it we will come to know the scope of the elicitation. Based on these inputs we will be knowing the scope of the illustration, how we are going to make it, where we are going to make it. Okay, so for that we need to understand, let me say if the business domain is very complex, then we will do it in one way. Okay, if it is everyone knows about it, mostly if you are aware of it, then we'll do it in one way. Likewise we will, it all depends on these parameters. Okay, and it is also dependent on the culture, the corporate culture and the environment which is being used here, and even the stakeholder locations also makes the difference. So all these points are taken into consideration before we propose any techniques. Before we propose any techniques on the elicitation, we have to first of all understand the scope of the elicitation. This is the context in which we do the elicitation. Please understand, this is the context in which we need to do the elicitation. The context is you have to consider the business domain, overall corporate culture and environment, and the stakeholder locations, and their dynamic stakeholders who are involved here, and their group dynamics, and what will be the output of the illustration activity, and the skills of the business analyst as well, because the business analyst is more skilled, he can do it quickly, just like that he can understand the requirements. Suppose he's a beginner, he struggles to get information and he struggles to understand the meaning of what the stakeholder says. So we need to understand the skill set of the business analysis practitioner as well, and what is the solution approach. Okay, and the scope of the future solution, all this we have to consider it before we start our illustration. We have to consider these parameters. Fine. And then how to select an elicitation technique. Okay, how to select an elicitation technique. Okay, for us to do any elicitation, multiple techniques are available for us. How to choose a suitable technique, and these techniques you can use one after the other, or simultaneously you can use it, or exclusively you can use it. There are multiple ways of doing it. There are multiple ways of using these techniques. Okay, now the base of selecting a technique or a suitable technique here is, it all depends on number one, the cost and the time constraints, and also the types of business analysis information sources and their access, the culture of the organization, and the desired outcome. So based on these 5 parameters we will choose. Based on this 5 parameters we will choose an elicitation technique. Okay, now sometimes we can use a tool for that purpose. If the tool is let me say is very cost of that tool, using the particular tool is very less, it's okay. Suppose the cost is very high, then we have to look for alternative options. Okay, now here so many constraints were used. Here we will depend on how to select an illustration technique. The parameters on which we depend on: number one, the cost; number two, the time constraints; and then the type of business analysis information sources and their access; and then the culture of the organization and the desired outcomes. Okay, like what should be there, based on it we will select a tool. Okay, now another important thing we have to actually consider here is we have to consider the stakeholders as well, like stakeholders, their availability, their locations, and the way we interact with them. That is also we have to consider before we freeze on a technique. Okay, now taking all these parameters into consideration, we have to choose the right technique. So choosing a right technique will definitely ease your doing business analysis activity, that is illustration, and we can get information in the right way. If you choose a wrong technique, you may not get the right information, and sometimes stakeholders will be like not that cooperative, or sometimes stakeholders may give you a wrong information. So it is always preferable for us to choose the right technique before we actually do this illustration process. We have to choose the correct technique here. Got it? And this here we have to consider, that is what previously the similar kind of illustration scenarios may what all we have used in the previous scenarios, like those techniques which we have used in the similar initiatives, that we can actually choose few of them. And sometimes few techniques are specially suited for this particular situation, then we can use that technique. Okay, and here we will be looking into the the context of which we actually are going to make it, and the result in which we are going to make it up, and then based on it, the current situation and context and the present dynamics, we are going to actually choose an elicitation technique. Okay, fine, this is what we are going to say it. And then the next one is we have to set up logistics. Now before we start an illustration activity, logistics should be planned. Okay, and these logistics, it all depends on the following parameters. Number one, what is the activity goals, and who are the participants and their roles, and the scheduled resources, like what are the people, who are the people involved, which rooms we are, the conference rooms which are going to make it, and what tools we are going to use. All this we will be considering, and the locations, and the communication channels, the techniques, and the languages used by the stakeholders. All this we will be considering, and we set up a logistics. Now communication channels means, number one, it is a con call or video call, or we can consider a tool, or we can go with some meeting links, and then it can be sometimes email communication. Likewise, these are the communication channels which you can establish. Okay, and here before we start up this logistics, we have to take all these parameters, consider these parameters, and then we have to we have to set up this okay, there's a particular, we have to plan for this logistics part. Okay, let me say if you want to take inputs from like the CEO of the company, then you plan it in one way. Or let me say you want to take inputs from a team member who is actually using this particular application. He's facing a challenge, you want to plan to understand his concern, then it is done in one way. So there will be multiple ways of doing things. So before we set up the logistics, okay, this needs to be considered. Okay, fine. And before we start this elicitation, we should get supporting material. We should get supporting materials for this. Okay, so we need to first of all identify the sources of information that are needed to conduct this illustration activity. And these informations can be like the people, systems, historical data, materials, and documents. Okay, so from where we will be we have to source this information would be like from the people, we can get it from systems, and from historical data, from materials, from documents, we can get this. Okay. Next, documents, if you want to understand what it includes like what information, what supporting materials we'll be getting is that existing system documents, relevant business rules, organization policies, regulations, and contracts. All this information will be a supporting material for us. All this will be the supporting material for us. Okay. Now we have to identify the supporting materials, and for that we have to identify the people, process, and the systems who are involved, and from them we should get this information about these materials we should secure from them. What can be required for us to actually do this elicitation, what all information is required concerning the materials, the relevant materials we have to secure from these areas. Okay. So we have to take information concerning the people, systems, historical data, materials, and the concerning documents we will be getting it. Okay. And here these supporting materials really help us in driving the process or for the discussions or to understand the context, because directly you cannot rely on the stakeholders, because in few cases even the stakeholders may not know how, completely about what is that they have to give us, or what is the project is to them. So few stakeholders may not understand it. Supporting materials will give us an an idea and a scope how we are going to proceed. Okay. And here this supporting materials we can also propose this is how we can take it forward, because we will be getting some information, some knowledge on this particular process or the project or the initiative. Okay. And a few times few things are very new. With experiments only we will be understanding it, so that those things can also be we can understand once we can gather this supporting materials. Okay. Next, we have to prepare prepare the stakeholders for the elicitation. Now this is an important phase which we have to consider. Okay. So here preparing the stakeholders is something like because if the stakeholders are not prepared to give you the requirements or to share with you that information, then what all attempts you make it all goes waste. So we should first of all prepare the stakeholders. We should first of all prepare the stakeholders to actually get involved here, and then contribute the relevant information and can take the expected value or outcome out of this particular discussions. For that we should first prepare the stakeholders for it. And how to prepare the stakeholders means, first of all educate the stakeholders like what all illustration techniques are there, and it is something like how to play that particular game. Okay. So here let me say elicitation may we have some rules to follow in elicitation techniques. Let me say if you are doing a brainstorming, then we have rules and regulations. Brainstorming may if one person is giving an one idea, others will have to stay calm, listen to it, and correlate if they can get any other ideas based on that idea as well, then they will be listening to it. So only one person will speak at a time, and while they actually speak they can even write that idea and place it in the relevant section, like, so the others will be calm. And once that person has given one idea, the second person may build one more additional idea based on this idea. That is a technique. Then you have to tell them, when one person is speaking you all should not speak anything, just listen to them. What is their idea? If you have any idea based on that idea, you first note it down, and after that person is completed we will give you a chance, then you can now present your idea. Like we have to educate them how to actually contribute and participate in an elicitation. That means how a technique can be utilized. First of all you have to train them. It is something like just before you play a game you tell the rules of that particular game, right? Suppose if you are playing any game, you will tell the rules of that particular game. So here as well we have to tell the stakeholders how it is going to happen, how this particular illustration technique is going to happen, we have to even educate them first, okay, and make them understand that if you follow this process, this is the benefit you will be getting because of it. So you have to make them actually make them aware of it and make them prepare for it, okay. And now if you can educate them about this, how this technique will work out, even the stakeholders also will prepare themselves to contribute here in the right way. Possibly they will come up with their own process documents for them to refer and tell you, and they may come up with the latest challenges in their process, how they are what they are facing it, they come prepared for it. Unpreparedness is different from preparedness, because if they come prepared with all this information, then they can actually give you good information so that you can utilize it. So we have to prepare the stakeholders that we are going to conduct so and so activity in that particular elicitation. Your role would be in this particular way. You have to contribute in this particular way. We are going to ask you in this way. You have to answer it in this way, or you will be posing questions in this way. We will be answering in this way. Like that, we will be actually we have to educate them in that idea. We have to make them aware, like what is that we are going to make it. So this is very, very important. And also these people, the stakeholders, once they get to know once they understand this technique, what they do is that they will also get relevant information or materials, so that it becomes easy for them to present it, okay. So this, what is that we will be doing here is, this is for preparing them for the we have to prepare the stakeholders for this illustration, okay. And sometimes these stakeholders, they have to buy in time from other stakeholders as well, because it's very, very important nowadays. You take any company, we all need to fill in timesheets. That means we have to justify our 8 hours work. We have to justify our 8 hours work. So we say, if we have to justify our 8 hours work, for every activity a stakeholder contributes, okay, he is accountable for it. For that, we need to actually take their time, means just like you call them, they cannot commit. So we have to understand that their time is also valuable. And we also take permissions. We have to inform their managers as well, that for so and so purpose we want so and so stakeholders time, we need 2 hours of his time or 3 hours of his time concerning so and so requirements clarification. Like that, we have to even take approvals from their managers, because here the workload, because your contribution of 2 hours or 3 hours, a particular stakeholder contribution for 2 hours or 3 hours, that should be accountable for that stakeholder. Let me say he has given you 2 hours or 3 hours time in making you understand a requirement or a particular initiative, and later on their managers did not identify or recognize this activity, and the 2 hours pay they cut it. The next time will this guy come and contribute when you request for anything? Definitely no. So we should also ensure that the stakeholders participation and contribution is accounted for their work. So it is as a part of their work they're doing it, then their managers also realize it, and it will be an encouraging for them. So we should take care. Like sometimes what happens is that if a stakeholder comes and contributes, and if that work is not recognized or not counted in their timesheets, then it becomes a problem. So that's the very reason we should understand it. And another important thing is that we should understand the stakeholders objectives, personal objective about this particular project, and what is his interest levels, what he thinks about this particular project. First of all, we need to understand about this initiative. We need to understand what is his personal agenda. We need to understand, and what is his interest levels in the organizational growth, or what he is up to, that we have to understand. Suppose if you're not let me say one stakeholder is there, he's very much keen on the to make his company successful. He wants to work he wants to see that his company stands first in the market, like that. Then we need to understand it. And if few stakeholders for the sake of working the work, then in that case we have to handle them in a different mode. For people who actually work with passion and they want to make their company top, or they want to make their process a good process, they want to make it so without any errors, like that, then we handle them with one way. So we need to understand the stakeholders, what is their mindset about their own organization, their own process, and about this project. Then based on it, the way we talk to them, the way we prepare them, varies. Fine, we have to do it in that way. Okay, and here, before we start this stakeholder preparation, we need to understand about the stakeholders, not only this, what is their mindset towards their organization, towards the process, and towards the this particular initiative or this project. Along with that, we should also know their characteristics, behavioral, how these people are going to make it, what is their previous experiences, like what achievements did they do. All this we should, it is just like a profile, professional profile we should understand, and their personal profile as well we need to understand. So based on it, we have to prepare the stakeholders. Let me say a stakeholder, he's engaged and he has his marriage next week, and you call him for all the illustration now only. Then do you really think this guy will contribute 100% for you? He has so much of shopping to do, he has so many friends to meet and invite them, all this would be there for him. Then in such cases it will not work out. So we have to actually understand all these parameters before we start a release station. Then we need to understand these parameters. One is the one, we need to understand about the professional profile, and we need to understand about the personal profile. Both we need to understand before we make the stakeholders proceed towards it. Okay, fine. So these are the elements which we have for preparation for the elicitation. And here, the guidelines. If you look into the guidelines, one is the business analyst approach. We have to look into it. Okay. Now this is one of the elements. If I'm not wrong, it has been come wrong here. Okay, just let me understand. Just give me a second. I'll verify and tell you. Elements may understand the scope of elicitation, select elicitation techniques, set up the logistics, securing material, prepare the stakeholders. Okay. And business analysis approach. Got it. Now, guidelines for us to do this particular task. Okay. So business analysis approach is very, very important for us. Business analysis approach is important for us. Okay. So we need to understand business analysis approach. Okay. Business analysis approach means, okay, so how we are going to do this particular activity, who are involved in it, and what is the list of how many members are there, and what is the time of their work and what is the time of our work. Okay. And what are the formats of the illustration results. So these things, because we have to have an understanding of it, then we can, this is one of the guidelines which we will be using it. Okay. Guidelines, I'll tell you, I'll give you a simple example. Guideline means, let me say there is a travel plan. Okay, travel plan is there, you have to visit so and so place. One of the guidelines will be the budget for it. Let me say if the budget is where they will tell you the budget is so and so. Within that budget, you have to plan it. The rest of the things it goes, but the budget is one of the guidelines there. So based on it only you will be making it up. Okay. And then we have this business objectives. Now business objectives means it is like how this particular business is going to make this concerning this particular elicitation. What will be the business objectives we will be used, the how these business objectives can be used in our elicitation events and supporting materials that we will be considering. And existing business analysis information, that is what I told you, like existing business analysis information means previous experiences we can even bring in here, and the value which we can make it up. Value means it's like because of this elicitation, preparing for this elicitation, what value we are going to make it up. Here we have to come up with that KPI so that it becomes easy for us. Okay. And then what techniques we can use this preparing for elicitation. So we can use this brainstorming. Okay, so brainstorming means that is one of the elicitation techniques, like how to do this. We can prepare a brainstorming for it. We can use a brainstorming technique. And data mining, because already information is there, then on the existing information we can understand the patterns of how this can be done. So data mining. And document analysis, so on the existing documents, how we are going to read that document and understand how we can take these elicitations forward, that we can understand. And then there's estimations. So we have to estimate the time and effort required for this particular initiative. We can go and estimate it, because we have to buy in times of the stakeholders as well. For that we have to go with the estimations. Then we can conduct interviews. Okay, so here in interviews we can clarify on our what we say, any queries on that, or we can extract important information by conducting interviews like that. And then mind mapping, it is an approach by which everyone would be connected to the problem area, and we'll try to solve that particular problem using various techniques. In that one is the mind mapping. And then the risk analysis, we will be looking into the risk analysis of it. So risk analysis may, for a business analyst, where a risk can happen, while doing the analysis where risk can happen, we will be understanding it, and based on it we will take necessary precautions. Okay, we will take necessary precautions in such a way that if so and so happens, what should be the mitigation plan, we should come up with that. Okay, so it's like sometimes we need to understand the risks before we start doing things. We need to understand the risks involved in doing that particular activity. So if at all, if you don't assess the risk in the first hand, then a major problem will hit you, and that becomes a big problem. Okay, and you cannot sometimes you may not be in a position to handle it if you don't expect it. So why we do risk analysis is that before we do any activity, if you do risk analysis, then if something goes wrong, we'll understand, okay, fine, because of so and so activity this risk has come, and we'll also come up with a plan how to mitigate it, how to handle it. So that will be there. And here we need to understand about the stakeholders list, map, and personas, that how the stakeholders will behave, how we need to consult them, and how we are going to interact with them, and which areas like these stakeholders will show interest to interact with us, that we will be considering it here. Okay, and then domain subject matter experts, we should take their help in getting the support materials, and some inputs of how this can happen, and what exactly what process or what techniques will work out in this particular area of elicitation. These people will give us inputs, and they will also give you some materials on how to do the research, or they will help you in understanding to do any experiments there, and they will also tell you how to facilitate so and so techniques here. So these people are of like a great use here when you utilize their services. In when you make them understand this is what you're trying to do, they will help you out in making your elicitation, prepare for elicitation a success. Okay, and then we have the project manager. Now the project manager, that he ensures that the resources are available for you for you to conduct this elicitation. Okay, and then the sponsor, because sponsor has he will be like because he's the guy who is sponsoring the entire initiative. Therefore he will understand, because of this particular procedure, this is the benefit you are going to get, and so stakeholders are involved. So all this we have to first submit our plan to the sponsor, and sponsor will either will approve it or will deny it. Most of the times he approves us to do this activity. Fine, got it. And then if you see, the output is like elicitation activity plan. That is we used it for each elicitation activity, like okay, what is the plan we are going to make it. It includes the logistics, it includes the scope of elicitation activity, and what are the selected techniques, and what is the supporting material we will be making it here. Okay, now what I'll do, we will do one. Okay, I want you to note down the output of this illustration plan, prepare for illustration. This output, I want you to note it down. Please note it. What is the output of this illustration plan? Please note this.
Sorry, Mr. Venkat, are we on the right slide?
Uh, Let me say.
Yeah.
You got it?
Outputs. Now it is the output section. Yeah.
Right. Please write these outputs. Okay. Please note down these outputs. Done? You have written it? Okay.
Yes.
Okay, fine. Now, I will share with you one case study. Already we have seen this case study. Okay, for this case study, I want you to note down or come up with this outcome, whatever I said, whatever you noted down, what should be the logistics. First, identify who will be the stakeholders for you to interact with it. And then, okay, first go through this case study first. Go through this case study.
Hello. Hello.
Yeah, tell me. Yeah, please identify the stakeholders here. I want you to identify the stakeholders first. From this case study, please identify the stakeholders. I want you to write down the list of stakeholders from this case study. Please identify those stakeholders first. First, write down the stakeholders from whom you can gather the requirements. I want you to note down the stakeholders list now. Please note down the stakeholders who are involved here. And once you're done, then we will discuss.
Should we send it to you after writing it down?
Please send it across.
Oh, thank you. I've sent it, Venkat.
I'll check it. So the stakeholders, what you have identified? Jan, what do you have identified as stakeholders?
Company accounts officer,
Okay.
recruiters,
Okay.
and clients.
Okay, fine. So these are the three parties which we will be interacting with now, right? One is the account manager, officer, and the second one is the recruiters who will be working there. And then their clients as well, but their clients we don't have that much access. Please understand, you may have direct access to this company's account. Now, how we are going to actually interact with them, this is very, very important. That means I want you to understand till what extent you'll have access to these people. I want you to note it down. Okay, you got me, no? Let me say you guys are staying in one location, in one country. This client is in a different country. Let us consider that this particular company is in Germany. Okay, please consider that this company is in Germany. Now I want you to actually understand how this will happen. I want you to come up with the scope of the elicitation activities and what are the techniques we can do here, and what is the supporting material we can have it here, and what logistics are involved. I want you to know, I want you to do the homework, and tomorrow we'll be discussing on it. Fine, got me? You have identified the stakeholders and consider that this company is in some Germany. Hope no one is in Germany now. You guys are not in Germany, right?
No.
Oh, thank God. Sometimes it happens that one of you will be in Germany. So techniques will vary once again. So here, considering that no one is in Germany, so you have to consider this, the outcomes of it. You have to, like, logistics, scope of elicitation activity, selected techniques, and supporting material. You have to prepare from this case study. Tomorrow we'll discuss on this. Okay, got it? Clear on that? Okay, any questions from you on the discussed topics?
Actually,
Yeah.
today, but in the previous session, we were going to BA activity plan key performance indicators.
You want about key performance indicators? Okay. Actually, that we'll be discussing because I'll take a case study and we'll discuss it. Okay. So
Sure.
before actually, the first knowledge area is a combination of all the remaining 5 knowledge areas. That's why what we will do, we will discuss these 5 knowledge areas in a detailed way. Then we revisit this first knowledge area, and then we will understand why we have discussed all this here, because it's a combination. If you see, business analysis planning means it's a planning for all these areas only. So the actual subject starts here only. The actual subject starts here. And it is a overview. Whatever we discussed in the previous knowledge area, it is a overview of all these 5. So let us cover these 5 knowledge areas first, and then we revisit it. Therefore, we will understand it in the right way. Right? You got me, no? So this is a part of it. So we are going to discuss this. From here, the actual subject starts. Got it?
Sure.
Okay, fine. Madhulika, you're about to say something.
Yes. There are no questions from my side for this session, though the previous session, the one which I've not attended, hope it's in the drive so that I can just go through the slides and understand.
It's there, and it is it's simply we did a revision part of it. We didn't cover much about it. Okay, it's like this. Today you do this activity. It is an independent activity. It is not dependent on anything else. Okay, just for today's discussion, whatever we had it, just apply that knowledge here. Okay, that we will make it up. Not a problem. Okay.
Yeah, sure. Okay.
Fine. And
thank you.
Yeah, Penchulaya, any questions from your end?
No, for now.
Okay, fine. I'll share this case study with you. Please share your email ID in WhatsApp. I'll share this case study with you. I want you to work on this particular areas. Okay. If you just give an attempt, tomorrow we'll discuss how this can happen. Fine.
Yeah, fine.
Okay then. Thank you.
I'll
Thanks for
share
your
it.
time. Okay then. Thank you. Bye bye.
Thank you. Thank you, guys. Yeah. Bye.
Thanks. Bye bye.